Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Holistic Pharmacy Podcast. I have a very special guest with me today, as I always do, and I'm super excited because this is the last episode of season 7. It's been a whirlwind. It's been an amazing season with so many great guests, and I wish everybody a very happy holiday season, and I look forward to seeing you all next year with a fresh new season, and I'll likely be taking about a month off, so I'll likely see you in February. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Kortney Leany. She is born near the picturesque Rocky Mountains of Colorado. She grew up as the middle child in a loving family, and her journey of self-discovery began early. She balanced parental expectations with her desire to forge her own path. And despite a small frame and an awkward growth spurt in high school, Kortney found her passion in weightlifting in 2012. Competing in 4 fitness competitions, she marveled at her body's adaptability, but also faced the harsh realities of strict diets, leading to health issues like anxiety and extreme fatigue. Driven by her experiences, Kortney delved into gut health, sharing her struggles on social media and connecting with many who face similar challenges. Her quest for natural healing led her back to the basics: grounding, sunshine, and whole foods. Now, as a mother of 2, she's dedicated to educating others about the profound impact of gut health on overall well-being, embodying resilience, and the power of natural healing. She has joined forces with Vital Earth Minerals, a supplement company with the same passion for natural and holistic wellness as her own, and together they're working on bringing simple solutions to living healthier lives. So welcome, Kortney. I probably mispronounced your last name. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us where you grew up and how a little bit more about your journey, about like how you got into the field that you're now in and the work that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's Kortney Leany. Most people pronounce that wrong just because of the way that it's spelled. But yeah, I was brought up in a fairly healthy family. My mom actually is the one that kind of started my health journey. She started doing fitness competitions back in, I think it was maybe 2010. And watching the way that her body could transform, especially with, I think, I don't want to say this wrong for her sake, but I think she was in her 40s then. And I mean, I think kind of in the 90s and in the 2000s, it was kind of like you become a mom, you reach a certain age. And sorry, I have sinus stuff going on right now. So,
Oh,
um,
high five.
this season. Um, but yeah, the way that she transformed her body was incredible. So I actually started doing fitness competitions as well. I did my first fitness competition in 2012. And I think that's where I kind of confused fitness for health. And I think still to this day, there's a lot of confusion. The industries don't always go together. So the diet that I was on, a lot of people do what seems like irreparable damage to like their thyroid by being low sugar, zero carb, especially women. It can be if you're not coming off of the diet well, it can be pretty detrimental to your health, but you look good. So you confuse it with feeling good. And people see you as looking healthy. So they confuse you as being healthy too. So it's kind of like this very confusing feeling of looking your best, but not feeling your best. And then having people come to you for health guidance because you look so great, you're so lean, and the health standards on women in the US is a little it's pretty much unachievable what we're expected of us, really. So I ended up just really struggling with my health and body dysmorphia a little bit too, wanting to be 5 to 7% body fat, and when I would put on more, I could see it on me. Even though I still looked great to everyone else, I didn't feel great because I was used to being so low body fat. So I really took a deep dive into self love, which I hated that word before because I thought it was corny. And I think a lot of that has to do with nutrition too. And so I learned that eating fat does not make you fat. And I learned that your body actually needs fat in order to be healthy. And there were I overcomplicated it so much because eating a tomato in a fitness competition, you're cheating on your diet. So I had to kind of like pull back the reins and start with a really good simple foundation. And that's really what I want to communicate, especially to women, but I think that anyone can really take this advice is pulling it back, looking at yourself and changing out of love instead of changing out of things that you hate about yourself or don't like about yourself. So, yeah, that's kind of how it all began. And then luckily, I was brought into this beautiful company, Vital Earth Minerals. And I knew about fulvic and humic, and I had actually taken their supplement years and years and years before even being integrated into the business. Um, but I didn't understand what fulvic was. And I kind of thought that all minerals were minerals, all vitamins. I thought that it didn't matter the sourcing of things. Like if you take vitamin D, it's all the same. If you take zinc, it's all the same. And what I found out is the source of all of these things matters more so than what it is you're even consuming. And so I think that this company has allowed me a really good place to kind of teach people a good foundation for nutrition. And then with what I've done for myself, give people a good foundation for kind of overall learning to care about yourself. And in turn, that will just lead to overall health.
Wow, thank you so much for bringing all of that into the conversation. I think there's a few key areas that we can really dissect in there. And also, I just got the idea and the correlation between your last name, lean, right? The first four letters are actually lean, and you were, a fitness competitor and like really focusing on being
Mhm.
lean. So that's interesting. Um,
Yeah.
And I think, I have a lot of different people from a healthcare background, most of them on the show.
Mhm.
And then I have some people who don't have that background but got into the health field. And I think you're bringing up
Mhm.
very important topics around there being so much confusion and information slash misinformation that is
Mhm.
out there. And there is no like one consensus. And even the guidelines that we have for nutrition from the government are being
Oh, yeah.
constantly for a good reason,
Yeah.
particularly because of the sourcing and because of the issues that you were mentioning about the macronutrients, the carbohydrate being a food group that is recommended, but what is the right proportion, right? When it's a fitness
Mhm.
competition, they want to eliminate it. Also, we might want to eliminate certain food groups when people don't tolerate them, when their immune systems are reacting to them, for example.
Mhm.
And then there's also the when you eliminate too much, your organ systems don't work as well because they actually need specific nutrients in order to either metabolize, like your thyroid, or to detoxify your body,
Mhm.
like your liver and your kidneys. So we definitely need to be aware of what food groups can provide us with the macronutrients as well as the micronutrients from the mineral side of things and the nutrient side of things, and the vitamins, right?
Mhm.
Where we're eating, in my opinion, to kind of simplify things, it's we need to focus on eating whole, nutrient-dense foods,
Mhm.
ideally from local sources and mostly plant-based. And this is where I always quote Michael Pollan, right? Eat real food, mostly plants, and not too much, right? That's
Mhm.
how I think was just a brilliant way to simplify things. And yet, when we have whole industries that are marketing both food-like substances to us with processed ingredients, including seed oils, which I'm glad are having,
Mhm.
a moment right now on social media discussing, what are the ramifications or like artificial dyes in kids' foods and cereals and things like that. And
Mhm.
ingredients that we shouldn't add to foods, but are added during processing of foods. And so it just can be such a confusing field to get into. And then as a just a regular person trying to live their life and be healthy as a consumer, right? It just becomes very difficult to
Mhm.
go food shopping and to try to buy something healthy for you and your family. And there's just you can't trust the government, right? Because their guidelines are outdated,
Unfortunately, no,
and
yeah.
then there's all of these opinions that are just being thrown on social media and by experts
Mhm.
alike, and you just kind of don't even know who to listen to and who has the right guidance. And then, like you said, with the fitness industry, I have never actually, um, you know, come to terms with that because I wasn't ever a competitive fitness model or anything like that. I did do dance for a long time, and there definitely
Mhm.
was a pressure to be lean and muscular, obviously for aesthetic purposes. And so I think there's definitely like a variability around what is healthy, what is a healthy weight for every person. But I
Mhm.
definitely think there is an obesity epidemic for sure. And the problem is we're not getting nutrients from like all of the foods that people are consuming. They're just getting empty calories and not actual nutrients that can supply our body with what it needs to function well. And that's the real problem.
Yeah, and the thing that I see the most is you'll have even nutritionists that like they'll say you need to eat steak, but it does matter what steak you eat. You want a good source of your protein, like eat an egg, but it does matter. And even though, like, if you go from eating processed foods to whole foods, which I think is a very simple first step, and again, that's really what I want to convey is simplicity. Find brands that you can trust and just stick with those brands. I have done so much research, and at first, it is you do have to put the time in to research what brands are good, what brands have been bought out by General Mills or these companies that end up changing the formula. And unfortunately, that happens regularly. But again, like you said, if you buy local and you buy from small businesses, you're just going to get better quality because those small businesses have to have better quality in order to stay in business. They can't compete with these huge companies, so they have to provide something different. But I do think sourcing is just not taught to people enough. People are like, "Oh, my trainer," because I used to be a personal trainer. I owned my own gym and I made this mistake. So I'm not coming from a place of, anyone does it with negative intention. I think we're all just kind of learning together. But I do think that people need to be taught that what eggs you're eating can benefit you more than other eggs, and what steak you have, what vegetables you have. And so I think that's a really good foundation to start with is if you go to Whole Foods, just research what brands you're buying from. And it can be as simple as Googling the name of your eggs and seeing if they're, where they're sourcing it from, if they source from small farms or if they're mass produced. And it might take time to find your brands, but once you find your brands, it gets so much simpler after that.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'll just bring up one more thing about calories real quick because it drives me crazy when people say, calorie is a calorie is a calorie.
Mm.
And this is the law of thermodynamics. And yes, while we're calculating calories based on the amount of heat or energy they can unlock and produce, we are not counting, again, the nutrients in that
Mhm.
calorie. We're not seeing what are the macronutrients and the micronutrients that that calorie is providing the body. So
Mhm.
even if you are eating the same amount in calories of different foods, that food, the source of that food, like you said, does matter. Because if you just focus on the calories you might end up depleting your body and not replenishing because your body also uses nutrients to digest the foods, right?
Mhm.
So you have to double down on the nutrients, especially if you're eating processed and junk food. You actually have to make sure you're eating even more nutrients to cover the deficit that the digestive process is going to take. So that's one thing that really was profound to me when I learned about it. So I'm curious, Kortney, how you started, right, to research about health on your own, and you mentioned you learned about fat. So where did you learn to trust both information and then also the sourcing of vitamins, supplements, foods, etc.?
Oh gosh, that was a long journey because again, you have to find sources that you trust. So I ended up finding influencers that I would trust. I would end up, following certain influencers that I would figure out were just trying to sell something and didn't necessarily have people's best interests. So it's kind of a little bit give and take and like being very patient with yourself that it's okay if you get it wrong. It's okay if you listen to the wrong information. Saying that I don't know was probably the healthiest thing that I ever did for myself because acting like you know everything or wanting to know everything can really hinder you from learning. So when you say I don't know, you're also willing to give up misinformation and take in something that might be better for you. So I've started following influencers on social media and YouTube that I trusted, that I knew would have people that actually cared about health. And really, what I found was people that have suffered from their own, either illness or, mental illness, physical illness. Those people that have a pain point behind health usually are the ones that I trust more because they have a passion behind wanting to help other people become better. And same with businesses. So I ended up just trying to find people with this pain point that are like, I suffered from this, and people that were suffering from the same things that I suffered from: body dysmorphia, anxiety, and really following their journey as well, because then we were kind of figuring out together, even though we didn't know each other. I was on that journey with them. And then when they would be like, oh, this really didn't work out for my body, and I thought that it would, then I would be like, oh, maybe I can do elimination and add something different as well. So I think just finding people and resources, again, that you trust, um, that was probably that again, you have to be so patient with yourself because you're going to get it wrong, but then that's one step closer to getting it right. So, yeah, I think the patience is the hardest part when you're first starting to learn because there's so much misinformation. But you can also find websites that are constantly putting stuff out there. I tend not to go to WebMD. There are certain sites, especially ones that are run by the government, that I just won't click on because, not that I think that all of them are trying to spread misinformation, but I think a lot of their resources, they genuinely don't know, or they're using old information that just doesn't apply to the environment that we have now. So,
Yeah, I agree. I tend to find that some of those are biased against like natural medicine or
mhm,
nutrition, where they will just say, I don't know too much. They'll just say, oh, there's not enough information to recommend an herb or a natural
yeah,
product or a food. They'll just blanket statement everything with, we don't know, we don't have enough data. But what you
yeah,
brought up with social media, I think is really interesting in terms of data because this is how we have like a crowd source of information that is available to
mhm,
us in real time. So it's almost like an open label experiment where
mhm,
everybody's just sharing in real time. Hey, this is what's working for me today. This is what I've tried. And that too is data. It may not be the quality of evidence that we look for, in randomized controlled placebo, double-blinded studies,
mhm,
etc. However, it too this can be profound, especially when, like you said, it's relevant to you. And if you can find enough parallels, it becomes much more relevant and clinically significant, right? And so
yeah,
I learned at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition the concept of bioindividuality. And that is also really profound because it's saying that one size does not fit all. So just
Mm-hmm.
because we have a standard, first of all, we have to question that, right? Because what data is that based on, and is that still relevant?
Mm-hmm.
And did they study the right variables when coming up with those charts and recommendations? And then number two is your body, again, even if we eat the same amount of calories and even if we try to source them from the same exact things, we may not have the same needs nutritionally
Mm-hmm.
or functionally the way our body is wired. So, two people having the same exact diet may be better for one person and worse for the other person. And we really have to see what are those other factors? What is their microbiome like? What is their mental health like? What
Mm-hmm.
are these other things? What is their lifestyle like? Stressors. We deal with stress in different ways, and we also deal with our nutrients and digestion in different ways. So I'm curious to learn how your background led you to working with a Vital Earth minerals specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think luckily the universe works in, magical ways, but I think that because of the effort that I was putting in the fitness industry and in the health industry, that that ended up getting me here to, a job that I am actually passionate about, that I can keep learning and growing from. So I think all the work that I was putting in, even though I ended up selling my gym and working at a hospital, which was very eye-opening, I think that all that work that I put in paid off to making me just like an important part of this business, even though I didn't necessarily know a lot about fulvic minerals in themselves. The foundation that I had was strong enough that it ended up helping me being able to help people with that would come in and ask for supplement recommendations or would call on the phone. We get multiple phone calls a day of people that are like, I read this online. What about this? And having that background information, I could actually help people rather than trying to make something up or saying I didn't know. It was honestly pivotal for me to be able to help the customers that are clearly suffering, or they would not be so hard pressed to find something to help them. So, that a lot of these people, whether they call and they're angry or frustrated, we've all been there before. And so, being able to kind of lay a simpler foundation for them, give them information that will be beneficial, even if it's one little tidbit of information. Um, all of that I didn't realize was going to play a huge role in me working here, but it's made the integration so much easier.
Yeah, awesome. So what is the exact nature of your job? And can you also tell us a little bit more about the company, its mission, and its products?
Yeah, so I'll start with what I do. So I do marketing and then I'm a product specialist here as well. And this is our first time really like getting into marketing. The business has been around since 2000 and it was started by Arlie and Jody. Jody is Arlie's mom. And mom and daughter, kind of, out of their own pain points, stumbled upon fulvic minerals, which were actually being used by vets because there's a lot less control over the things that vets are allowed to use on animals as far as like, compared to human trials. So they were actually using these minerals, a veterinarian was, on his horses and livestock, and seeing that he was having profound health effects on these animals from it. So he wanted to kind of try using it on people, and that's when he started, you know, kind of trial and error. And Jody was dealing with thyroid issues. I mean, she had all the symptoms of Graves' disease. She had the bulging eyes, the goiter in her throat, and she was so bad that her doctor wanted to have surgery to take out her thyroid. And she just was hard pressed to kind of figure out a more holistic way of helping herself and stumbled upon fulvic minerals. They ended up relieving her of a lot of her symptoms. And so she felt phenomenal about taking them, started taking them on a regular basis, and then was um, she was able to start the business with it too. And I don't think she ever wanted it to take off and be this huge thing. I think she just wanted to share what she had found with other people because it helped her so much with her life. But then she realized how pivotal minerals were, and they were so overlooked, especially back when she started taking them. It was more macronutrients, vitamins, and she was kind of neglecting her mineral intake. And she realized how pivotal they were into actually helping her body be able to absorb other nutrients like her vitamin deficiencies that, everyone with an autoimmune, they're having trouble absorbing a lot of nutrients. And so she ended up handing the business over to her daughter, and her daughter runs it now, and we've kept it very small. She's done such a good job at she doesn't want to sell it out. She wants to keep it small. We're located in Colorado, and there are 8 of us here working for the business, and we all have a passion. All of us that work here have a passion for health, and it's impacted our health enough from all of us taking it that we feel good. Like I give it to my kids, and there's not a lot supplement wise that I will give to my kids unless I know like the true sourcing of all of it. And so for me, that said a lot to be able to give something to my kids that A, that they would take, and B, I just know is going to benefit them in the long run. So yeah, that's kind of the long end of that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So I'm curious if you can tell us a little bit more about the benefits of fulvic humic acid and the sourcing and packaging, processing that you have with your company of this material.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll kind of explain more of fulvic. Fulvic and humic are the same, but humic is a bigger molecule. So it resides in the gut and it does the same thing as fulvic does, but it can't pass the blood-brain barrier. It can't, penetrate into the cells. So I'll go into more of what fulvic can do because anything fulvic can do, humic is doing, but more in the gut. And what fulvic is really doing is when I started learning about this little molecule, it's incredible, really. So it can go into the system, it can penetrate the cell, and a lot of people that take it will initially feel like they have more energy, and that's because it has 60 little receptor sites in it. So I explain it to people like a bus with 60 seats, and it delivers all of these trace minerals. So they're very, very, very small minerals. And it's delivering them in a solution that it's all the minerals that our body needs. It's like having the full orchestra, and they all play very well together. Where people that are having health issues, they don't have the full orchestra of minerals and they're not playing harmoniously. They're kind of out of tune with one another. So these ones are all in solution that's extremely bioavailable. And the second that it delivers all of these nutrients out of these 60 seats, it has to fill the seats. So it pulls in, it changes its electrical charge, and it pulls in toxins like heavy metals, glyphosate, everything that's in our food, in our air, in our water that we're just accumulating from living. You can't avoid it. It's taking these in and it's eliminating them from the body. So it can even take free radicals and give them what they need in order to not be damaging to the body. So it's protecting the mitochondria, but it's also cleaning out the entire cell so that the mitochondria can function longer and for better. So it's a lot to explain, but if you just see it as the delivery truck and the garbage truck, it's doing both of those things, which a lot of minerals can't do because they're not as bioavailable to the body, and they're not an active carbon, so they can't change their molecular charge, if that makes sense. Which fulvic can just do multiple things that we take multiple supplements for, and it's all in one.
Yeah, so what is the sourcing? Like, where do you get the fulvic acid from in your company? And if you can talk about any other sources of it, and what makes your company different.
Yeah. So we source ours. It's humate, so it's compost, and it's prehistoric compost. We get ours from here in the US, and there is abundant sources of it. So we're not sourcing from something and depleting it from, the population of our environment. We're not taking away from the environment. Um, and we source ours from New Mexico. And it's so deep in the Earth's crust that it actually has not been exposed to man made chemicals or pollutants. It's a very pure product. So when we bring it in and we process it, we don't use any heat on it. We don't use any chemicals. We really keep the integrity of the product. And when we bring the humate in, we separate it. We separate the fulvic through like a brewing process, like a cold brew, like you would tea. And that separates the fulvic from the humic. So that way you can take the supplements, differently if you need to. Some people just want humic, some people just want fulvic. And then we do have a combination of those two that people can take. And that's a really good one for maintenance. But yeah, we wanted everything to be local. We wanted to be able to source here in the US. We wanted to be able to take from a source that it wasn't taking away from the environment. And actually, our leftover humate that we have, we give to, agriculture here in town so that they can remineralize their water or their crops, their fields. That's one thing that we're seeing a lot too is even organic food. There's not a lot of minerals in the soil. And so I think that, it's kind of going full circle. We can give people these minerals, but then we can also give it to like local farmers to remineralize the crops so that our food has the adequate amount of minerals in it. And there's also there's shilajit, there's salts, there's different ways of getting your minerals. And shilajit is the same as fulvic. They both have fulvic in it, humate and shilajit. If you get a bad source of shilajit, it takes a lot of chemicals to extract that from the rock. And so either way, you want to make sure you're getting a high quality source of your fulvic minerals. Kind of talking about what we talked about before, sourcing is extremely important. And then salts are a little bit harder for your body to get the minerals out of. So fulvic is 100% bioavailable right away in its liquid form. So your body's taking that in and it's able to utilize it, which is really what you want from a supplement. There's a lot of supplements out there that they're not extremely bioavailable. So even if you're taking a certain milligram of a supplement, your body might only be getting 10 to 20% of that. So yeah, that's one other thing that I would um, definitely recommend people looking into is how bioavailable their foods and their supplements are, because that makes a huge difference. If you're going to spend your money on it, you want it working with your body. Um, and one thing too with our supplements is fulvic enhances the bioavailability of anything that you take it with. So even though we say to take it apart from prescription medication because it could enhance it or pull it from the system, you can actually take it with your other supplements and make them more bioavailable, which is kind of something that I feel like sets us apart in the supplement industry. We're enhancing the effects of other supplements. We're not really trying to compete with them. We actually make it so that they can work better for your system. And you're also getting that really good mineral foundation, talking about you really want a strong foundation in your health. Start with your micronutrients. If you're getting the micronutrients that you need, everything else is going to work better. So I'm sure you've seen people that have taken an iron supplement and their iron levels are not getting better. It's because the toxicity in their body or their gut, they're not able to absorb nutrients as well. So by taking fulvic, it actually makes those things more bioavailable so that they're more useful, more utilized in the body.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that. It was a lot of great information. And let's just back up for the audience that may not be familiar with these supplements, the fulvic and humic acids, like what they actually are. So you mentioned they come from compost deep in the earth. So what they are actually the decomposed minerals from organic matter, including from plants and animal and other mineral sources, and they form the topsoil. Like a healthy topsoil will be very rich in these acids. And also there's certain rock formation and resinous substances in various regions. So the shilajit you mentioned, it comes from the Himalayas, maybe some other mountain regions. And they also culturally are used in different ways. So in my culture, actually, in like the Slavic countries, we also call shilajit by the name mumio. And it's kind of like a brand name supplement that is made from shilajit, and it is indicated for bone regrowth after a bone break or some other type of bone loss. So it really helps mend that bone, because the bone is your like reservoir for a lot of these trace minerals. It's not just calcium in there. And likewise, like you mentioned, iron, all of these things that we measure in blood work and that we know are necessary for the health of our body, they don't work in isolation, right? So even if you know somebody's low in iron, like you said, just giving them iron is not enough, because you need to understand, well, why is their iron low? You know, are they not absorbing the iron? Do they not have the necessary cofactors and other minerals that help them absorb iron from different places? And why don't they have that? Is it a matter of low stomach acid? And is that because they are taking a medication or some other reason? As people age, also, it becomes more difficult to get bioavailable minerals from even foods that we're eating because of those reasons. And so this topic of bioavailability and trace minerals, I think, is really, really important, and often not really talked about in mainstream media.
Yeah.
And you know, the global root cause collective reason for that is, like you said, the soil itself is depleted because of our soil practices and monocropping and our pesticide use and all of the things that make our soils depleted also make our crops more depleted. So then we
Yeah.
have to supplement these things and be aware of these things, as we hopefully are also working on other regenerative and sustainable solutions to revitalize and heal our soils and bring these kind of substances more back into our topsoils. And actually, one simple example is like cleaning your lawn and like getting all your leaves out, right, as the leaves fall down. And so it doesn't allow then that fulvic and humic acid to decompose naturally over time, because it does take time. And that's something that we lack, right? We're just rushing around all the time. But if we actually let nature decompose things naturally, it will form these healthier topsoils from all of those minerals. And then everything that grows there will be more rich in them. And so I think this is just a really great topic to be more aware of. And this is one way that you can source these minerals, you know, and it sounds like there might be some advantages over something like shilajit, which is, again, this tough resinous substance that you have to go and extract with alcohol and maybe some other means. And so I'm curious, you know, you mentioned there's a liquid form of your product. So what are the different dosage forms and what do you recommend for people?
Yeah, so we try and stick to all liquid supplements here because we just know that they are going to be more bioavailable. Anytime you turn something into a powder or a pill, you're going to degrade from the integrity of the minerals or the vitamins, the nutrients in it. So we have super strength humic, which is our strongest humic product. That's a really good place to start because it's starting in the gut. A lot of women, especially women, struggle more with autoimmune issues, but you know we all do. So I'm speaking from the point of a woman that starting in the gut is a really good place to start, and with your minerals as well. a lot of people are taking, they're concerned with macronutrients and then vitamins and all of these things. And, the, the basics are, kind of overlooked. So putting everything else on the shelf for a second and starting from the basics, simple things, walking, eating whole food, getting sunlight, and then your minerals. I really think minerals are the foundation of health. And starting in the gut is a huge place to is probably going to be more beneficial for most people because when you're having all of these issues, they usually start in the gut. The gut is pivotal for our overall health. So being able to clear that out, get all the toxins out, clear out the environment of these anaerobic microbes that kind of start taking over, and you create an environment for your aerobic microbes that are going to be your more beneficial microbes is kind of just trying to simplify things again. So starting there, once your gut is healthy, then you can move on to fulvic minerals or the mineral blend, and then you can work on clearing out the cell because then you're going to be absorbing, your gut's in a good place to where you're going to be absorbing the nutrients from your food. You're going to be absorbing the nutrients from your supplements. And then your body can be like, okay, now we can clear on a cellular level because our gut is in good shape now. So that's where I recommend people start is with our super strength humic. And adding from there, going to the mineral blend, you do eventually want to get the fulvic minerals in with that. And they're a lot lighter in color. They're easier for most people to take. So, like the fulvic minerals, I give to my kids because they're not black water like the humic minerals. So, they're a little bit more okay with taking those ones. So if you really have something against taking a light, earthy tasting supplement, you can just go with the fulvic. It will still benefit you. But again, with the way that our guts are in this society, I would really recommend, getting a good gut detox with the humic minerals.
Love it. So I'm actually on your website and I see you have like a multivitamin product as well. So would somebody just take that kind of all in one, or should they focus on like just the humic to start with?
Just the humic to start with, honestly, because most people are taking, in my opinion, too many supplements already. Everything has to go through the liver. So we're seeing a lot of liver issues. And I think it's, we're kind of giving our liver too much to deal with. So I would start with a month of doing a good gut cleanse with the humic. And then I would add on from there. It's kind of like if you were to picture a, an actually healthy like pyramid of where to start, you want your foundation to be those minerals. And then you can slowly add, your vitamins and then your macronutrients on there. But we do have the liquid. We have vital joint support that has hyaluronic acid in it. We have the super multi. We have the CalMag. CalMag and super multi are, some of our best sellers because a lot of people know about magnesium and its benefits and how it works really well with calcium. And our super multi, people love it because it's a liquid form of their multivitamins. But again, I would always start with the foundation of the minerals. All of our supplements have fulvic minerals in them too to make them more bioavailable. Even if you're not taking them with our minerals, the fulvic that we include in the bottles of our super multi CalMag and Vital Joint are just going to enhance the effects of all of those, bigger nutrients that are in there.
Yeah, I honestly love that they're liquid formulations because you're right. I mean, there's just so many supplements out there that can cause supplement fatigue with all the capsules and the tablets that your body then has to work hard to break down and digest and make bioavailable. And again,
Mm-hmm.
depending on your age and other health conditions, you may not be breaking down as well as you would hope or expect. So I really like this idea, and I often recommend this is why, as an herbalist, right, we do a lot of
Mm-hmm.
teas and whole foods and also tinctures that are liquid so that you, even though the
Mm-hmm.
dose on paper is not as large, because it's got all of these complex whole materials and constituents, your body actually recognizes them and is able to absorb them and utilize them. So I really like that. And also one other product that this fulvic and humic reminds me of is methylene blue, which is an old
Yes.
drug. Yeah. And now they're
Yeah.
finding that a low dose of methylene blue can actually activate the mitochondria and make it more efficient, which, is a huge problem with everybody being so fatigued
Hmm.
all the time. So I think, this kind of functions the same way as you described. So, um, it was so amazing to learn from you, and I really respect what your company is doing. And I want to thank you so much for coming on. And if you have just 2 more minutes, I would
Yeah.
love to invite you to a rapid round with me.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, cool. So the first question I ask everybody is, what's the number one advice you have for people to improve their quality of life right now?
Simplify. Simplify everything. Take a breath and take a step back. Figure out what the foundation is. For me, what I found out the foundation that helped me was moving more. You can't supplement or eat healthy enough to improve your health if you're not mobile. It's going to be counteractive. So you have to move. Movement is pivotal. So movement, whole foods, and water, sunshine. And I just would start with that foundation, make sure that you're getting, just the basics of everything and then build from there. If you have a strong foundation, it's a lot less overwhelming, and then everything else that you do on top of that, you're going to be able to hold on to those routines more instead of starting a routine and falling off, starting a routine and falling off. Just simplify it so that you can be consistent with it.
I love that. It's so important. It was kind of a trick question anyway, because yeah, we can't just isolate one health, topic or action and say this is the only thing you need. But the
Yeah.
simplifying, I agree, it allows you to be more consistent with it, the more simple that you make it for yourself. And,
Mhm.
just if you have to pause and take a breath, take a breath now. Just remind yourself to take a breath and do one thing at a time.
Mhm.
So, question number two I have for you is, if you can go back in time, what is one thing you wish that you learned sooner to improve your health?
As corny as it might sound, I wish that I would have learned to change out of love and what I'm capable of instead of trying to change out of finding things that I didn't love about myself and, you know, picking out things that I felt like were imperfect. I don't think that that is sustainable and I don't think that lasts. So I think that anytime you start with trying to learn how to like love yourself into being healthier, that's just more sustainable. So I wish that I would have been taught more about that.
Yeah, that's so profound and something that I'm learning more and more as I go and as I work with people to build that compassion and grace for oneself in order to create more of that. Because you
Yeah.
can't like create less hate by hating, you can
Hmm.
only increase what you focus on. So I love that. And then last fun little question, what's a hobby that you have or maybe something that not a lot of people know about you?
I love snowboarding and I grew up, my dad was a skier, so I ended up having to be decent at it or I would get left behind in the dust by my dad's skis. So now me and both of my kiddos they're taking up snowboarding as well. So we're in Colorado. So maybe people could have guessed that, but yeah, that's a huge passion of mine.
I love that. Yeah, thank you. And earlier in the episode, you also mentioned that you have an art background, so I think that's really cool too.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's a little bit easier to put on the shelf, but that definitely is a huge passion of mine.
All right, beautiful, Courtney. So, lastly, I just want you to tell our listeners where they could find you, learn more about you and your company, and any of the promotions that you have for our listeners.
Yeah, so they can find these supplements at vitalearthminerals.com. There's also contact information so people can get a hold of me personally if they want product recommendations. We want to keep it simple and easily accessible to people. You're not going to you get in touch with a robot or anything that's automated. It's going to be people that you talk to. So they can find our contact information on our website as well. We have a lot of really beneficial information on the website. And then we would like to offer your listeners a 20% discount. So if they use code HPP20, they'll get a 20% discount on their first order of products. And we're constantly doing giveaways and sales as well. So if you follow us at Vital Earth Minerals on Instagram, on Facebook, you can type in Vital Earth Minerals and our name will show up. And our logo is the picture used on that too. So yeah.
Thanks so much, Courtney, again for coming on, sharing your wisdom with us and your journey. And I wish everybody a happy and healthy season, holiday season, all the holidays, and Happy New Year's. And I'll see you all next year. And this was really fun, Courtney. Bye.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a good one.